That's it.
Okay, do you guys think that there is a sense of levity among Nigerians concerning the issue of cybersecurity? Because the whole world is moving into the cyber world. Everything we do, even when we want to eat, it is a cyber world. When we want to secure ourselves, when we want to dance, when we want to gossip, it's almost as though virtual world has become as important as the real world. But it seems that Nigerians don't understand that that virtual world is more fragile than the real world. And there is a need to articulate properly what the danger is in this part of our new experience. Because even they say now that even if countries want to go to war, if US wants to go to war with China tomorrow, if you don't win on the cyberspace, you lose the war. No matter how many fighter jets you are, they can all be paralyzed just by pushing a button, rather than just the prowess and the training of your soldiers and so on. Now, even banditry in the northwest and the northeast and parts of the country, all of that constitute an important part of our new existence. I remember that last year, or was it a year before, some states in the north said that they wanted to cut off, what they call it, phone connections in certain regions so that they could separate the bandits from reality. But it failed because you couldn't stop them because they had control of the cyberspace. They had control of the internet. They had control of the web and so on. Could you please let us know the scale of this problem? And it seems that Nigerians don't understand the scale of the threats we go through. Somebody told me yesterday that, last night, that he had his whole account wiped off just because his card got missing got eaten up by the ATM. He said his whole account got wiped off and that he was still wondering what happened.
On the question of levity, yes, I do believe that Nigerians take this whole cyberspace thing for granted because, again, there's not a lot of understanding among the ordinary people about what it actually costs to protect the infrastructure that powers their TikTok, their Facebook, their Instagram, their bank transactions, their WhatsApp messages, you know, and even secure, again, like the other speaker said just now, their ATM cards and things like that. Now, again, coming back to the space of national security, Nigerians also take for granted that we are currently getting surrounded by countries that are not as democratic as we are. They don't have elections anymore, for example, in our northern neighbor, Niger. And some of these countries, again, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, are aligning themselves with the Russians. Now, whether we like it or not, that sets us in their sights because, again, Nigeria is inherently pro-Western. We are allied with the UK. A lot of Nigerians live and study and work in the UK. A lot of Nigerians go to visit the UK. Same thing with the US, same thing with France. Now, we are well on the global stage that the Russians and the Americans, or NATO generally, currently have issues between them. We have seen the Russians use cyber weapons and cyber operations to disrupt their enemies. Coming back to the issue of warfare, in Ukraine, when the Russians invaded Ukraine in 2022, one of the first acts that they did was to try and knock out Ukraine's power grid, Ukraine's telecommunications, using remote access technologies with cyber weapons. Now, our entire power grid today is controlled not by physical people most of the time. How power is distributed from Kenji Dam, for example, or Shiroro Dam, and distributed to Lagos, it's not necessarily controlled by physical people at physical installations. There's a lot of virtual environments at play, a lot of cyber environments at play. And these are vulnerable. If, for example, the Nigerians, during the height of the diplomatic issues with them last year, if they had partnered with the Russians and said, oh, look, Nigeria switched off electricity to Niger because we did a coup in our country, and the ECOWAS Charter is against that kind of occurrence. If the Nigerians had partnered with the Russians and said, look, we need to send a message back to the Nigerians, they could have hacked into our power grid. And we were not, or we would not have been in a position to really defend our critical infrastructure, our power grid, again, our banking sector, you know, things that affect the daily lives of the everyday Nigerian, that the everyday Nigerian does not really see, does not really take serious. They could have hacked into these things and at best disrupted them, or at worst completely wiped them out. Now imagine a scenario where the banks stop working. Transfers can't be done. The ATMs can't send information to the banking servers, so you can't even withdraw money from the ATMs. Imagine a scenario where that happened and we lack the infrastructure to even diagnose the problem and fix it because we don't have the capacity in place. Now, these are the things that the framers of the Act in 2015 and even as amended in 2024 saw and said, oh, we have to find a way to provide the resources to the Office of the National Security Advisor to protect these critical infrastructure. You know, when we talk about the cybersecurity levy, a lot of people tend to reduce it to a sum of Naira and Kobo. But it's more than that. It's about building the infrastructure, training the right people, deploying the right programs to protect our critical national infrastructure. You talk about ISWAP, for example, or Boko Haram. ISWAP, again, we have seen them over the years trying to develop their own cyber capabilities. We have seen them use the virtual space to disseminate their propaganda. We have seen them try to hack into systems. Now, imagine a scenario where ISWAP is able to hack into the telecommunications network and MTN goes down. And MTN by itself does not have the capability to restore its network. And then they turn to the Office of the National Security Advisor, and the right people and the right systems are not in place because they were not resourced. That is a scenario of disaster. And these are things that the framers of the Act, you know, tried to foresee and prevent by saying, okay, look, Nigeria is going through a difficult economic situation. We cannot continue to rely on oil money for absolutely everything. How do we raise money for other critical functions? Again, oil money has gone into the transportation sector, has gone into infrastructure, has gone into health and education. So how do we raise money to handle other critical infrastructure, other critical national security functions, such as cybersecurity? How do we raise the money for that? And they created this cybersecurity fund. Now, the average Nigerian does not see that, and I'm glad that we are having this conversation. Of course, there's reports that Mr. President has suggested. Again, I think we should be mindful of the language. I don't think Mr. President ordered the Central Bank of Nigeria to suspend because he, by the Constitution and the laws, he does not have the power to do so, as the Central Bank of Nigeria is an autonomous institution. He has suggested that this policy should be reviewed and a way to make it easier, not just on individuals, but also on businesses, be found within the ambit and scope of the law as passed by the National Assembly in 2015 and amended in 2024. Thank you.